This is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top questions and the things you struggle with most so you can have more energy and less decision fatigue about what to eat, how to move, and you can change your thoughts to Flip 50 with the life and the energy you love in this second half. And talk about flipping. I'm doing cartwheels over here. Well, if I could do cartwheels, I would be doing cartwheels because I've got an inspiring guest. If you know me in summertime as it gets to these lazy, hazy days, the last few years I've done a summer series, and this year is no different. And I'm kicking it off with my guest today, Shirley King. Shirley started getting into racing at age 59 after teaching swim lessons to adults out in New York, where she'd recently moved in 2003. Several of her friends were signed up for Ironman Lake Placid. She became curious about all the different races around the area, and at the time, she was in masters swimming, but they didn't have that there. Now, Shirley wasn't foreign to being active. Since she was a child, she loved activity. So through the years, she tried different things. She always looked for some way to be healthy and, of course, watch her weight. Typical woman, right? It was difficult when when her kids were young to get much exercise unless she walked in the evening. But as they grew, she wanted more. And like many of you, after 50, she was more free to pursue more activity. So she started running some, and she was in Race for the Cure and a few other short races. She moved around different states and was always met with women like herself who were active, liked some adventure. But it wasn't until 2005 that she really focused on triathlons. They're so much fun, and she loves the challenges. So Shirley, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, so it's so relevant. You know, I know that we all probably grew up and you're never supposed to ask a lady her age, but I have to ask because you have to be of age, actually, to be a guest.
Right.
So share your age.
I'll be 73 in September.
So good. And I love this last quote that you gave me, and this is from you. Each year, my goal was to get stronger and faster than the year before. As I aged, I found I could keep up with the beginners and my own age group. Each 5 years or so, I would get a bit slower, but still focused on doing my best. I'm still trying hard at what I love and try not to to come in last at a race. I'm so happy to see more women trying a sport, even though they may not like how they look or how much they weigh. Everyone can do something and feel accomplished in doing it. Now that is frame-worthy in my book. Such a great attitude. True. So I have to ask you right off the top that one of the things that I as a woman love about the triathlon community in general is that it really embraces all levels, all shapes, all sizes. Have you found that to be true, and do you have any examples?
Yes, it's very true. In fact, I belong to a tri website for women, and it's very encouraging. When you ask questions, they give their opinions, and they really help you out, especially when you're first getting started.
Such a great comment. And I think we're big fans here at Flipping 50 of the online community, so that no matter where you live in today's world, and, you know, as busy as so many of us are, if we're still working, and sometimes if you're not working, I know women who volunteer more than I ever worked, and they're still busy. You can find community no matter where you are because it's right there at your fingertips. You can find women doing the things that you want to be doing or the things that you are doing, and you can really feel at home and encouraged by what you find online and feel, I think, like they're right there. They're right there with you. I'm loving that. So you started racing at 59. You know, there are a lot of women who might think, you know, I'm slowing down now. It's, you know, downhill. how did you feel, after that, at that point when you were, going to that first starting line? I mean, what was that feeling?
Well, I had to do some training up to that first point, and I hadn't been on a bike probably for 20 years. So I got a hybrid bike. I thought, well, I can use this no matter if I decided I didn't like racing or not. And so that's how it started. And once I started getting out there and riding, and I just became more confident. I just had a nice bike that you could use for most anything. And so when I got in a race, you don't need anything special to do those things. You can just do an activity and participate in it. You don't need fancy equipment or anything. You just need the basics. And so once I did that first one, then it was just very exciting to be able to finish it. So after that, then I just started to move on and keep training, and eventually I traded bikes and got a road bike instead of the hybrid, just because of the positioning on the bike. It was easier when you were doing more miles. So each year, I'd add more things and changes, but that's initially how I got into it.
Are you training right now? Are you training with a coach or with a group or following a training plan? How are you accomplishing what it is you need to do?
After so many years, then actually I started with a coach when I decided to do an Ironman at 62. So I had a coach for that.
Could you just repeat that? Your first Ironman was at 62?
Yes, it was. And
Ironman which one was
Lake
that?
Placid. It was Lake Placid.
Okay. Okay, now, was there a second? Was there a second Ironman?
Well, I was in that Ironman race, let's see, I think 2009 and then again at 2011. Now, those I had a medical problem at 2009 with some asthma, so I didn't get diagnosed until 2 weeks before the race, and it just was too much for me. I was able to get through the bike, but after that I couldn't go. So I made it that far, and then 2011, I missed the time cutoff. I actually miscalculated what time I needed to be at on my run, so I had completed half of the run. And at one point, they just said, you missed your time cutoff. And I actually I guess I didn't prepare enough and find out where that time cutoff actually was. So I ended up not doing that. But then at 70 years
But
old,
let's be real. So I'm going to back you up just for a second. So let's be real on that. When you say I didn't do that, you did all but, right? I mean, because you did all the training and then you did everything that day except those last few miles. So in my book, you did that.
It felt like it. But then, when I was 70, I wanted to do an Ironman, but I knew I may not make the cutoff, or my knees may not make it. I didn't know for sure. So what I did was, my friends from our triathlon club, some of them joined with me, and so we did it on a weekend. We did the swim on Friday, the bike on Saturday, and the run on Sunday. So we completed a whole Ironman.
That's awesome. That is cool. I've done that too, and it feels like, okay, I've trained to it, I did it, and it's a great accomplishment.
Yes. Yeah, so it is. It always feels like it.
Okay, so Ironman is a big jump. Did you do an Ironman is a big jump, a long distance, and just to listeners, I'll describe. So that includes a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and then a marathon, which is 26.2 miles, all in one day. Yeah. And did you start with shorter triathlon sprints or Olympics or halves?
Yes. I did quite a few sprints. And then actually, I think my first half Ironman was in 2006. So it actually was a year after I started. I mean, I was slow, but I made it through that. So that was kind of the beginning. And then in 2008 was my first Ironman. And the day, I never thought I probably would make it on that one because it rained 5 inches that day. So it was continual rain through the whole thing.
Oh, my goodness.
But I did it, and I had a friend that he kind of helped push me towards the last. It's very amazing on a lot of these races. There's so many encouraging people that will help you out. You know, if they see somebody struggling, they will come up to you and, you know, even kind of help you along if you need it. So that's a good part of it.
It is. It's, you know, every time somebody says, what race are you doing, or are you training for a race? You know, I'm always quick to say, well, number one, the human race. I mean, that's the one I'm really in all the time. But I think of that triathlon community. It's such a great representation of there is so much good in the world. Sometimes I think we need to be reminded of that.
Yes, and I think, you know, people want to do something like that, and a lot of them, the hardest thing for most people is the swim. But there's a lot of people that will help you out to get you started. And once, you know, you just accomplish a little bit each time, and you can make it through. You can make it through the swims. And some of the races, the shorter races, and usually they're early on, some of them will have pool swims. And this is to encourage new people to try it, because you get in the pool, and if you're swimming along, you get tired, you can stand up and walk. And, you know, a short distance, usually about 300 yards. And so that's their first taste of doing a triathlon. And then later
great
on,
mention.
Right. And later on, if you want to get into the open water swim, then, you know, you start doing some of the lake swims. And some are really good. I have some favorites that I do, and the water's calm. Actually, the one in Des Moines, the water is I think it'll be at Grays Lake, but that is a really nice lake to swim in. So people can get over the, you know, the queasiness they might feel about doing an open water swim. You just have to find people that can help you along the way. And I think one of the best places is to try at the YMCA. Some Ys will give swim lessons, and they may even actually have something that helps you to do a triathlon. You know, some programs.
Very good. Great comment. And just for listeners who are less familiar even with swimming, so you may have jumped in a pool, swam some laps, but the distance we're talking about, the sprint triathlon, so it may be 300, it may be 400, some are up to 500.
Right.
It's about the maximum for sprints. Everybody kind of, race directors have their own little thing. But if you're wondering what is that, how long is that, that is if you're in a short pool. And it's probably 25 yards or 25 meters. That would mean you're going to do 6 laps. That would be the equivalent of 300 yards, or 8 laps would be 400 yards. Just to give you an idea of, could you do that? And it's pretty doable. So if you're able to swim, my guess is you could do that. Yeah.
Yes, and
great.
You know, if you need help, you know, the best thing is to try to find somebody that will give you some swim lessons. And and I do that. I do that a lot. If people want help, I help them. You know, I meet them there, and we work on. I like to work on first a survival type. You know, learn how to swim on your back at the same time, so that if you get tired, you can roll over and take a break.
Yes, smart thinking. And by the way, out there in that lake, and many of you will remember a podcast, I'll link to it, with my friend Susan McNamee, who was just a very new swimmer when she did her first Ironman at Wisconsin. She swam kayak to kayak. that first Ironman,
that's right.
and made the cutoff within 30 seconds, but she did it.
Yes, you can do that. They have a lot of kayaks out there now, or surfboards, or whatever, and you can stop there and rest, and then you just continue on your way.
So true. All right, so you're 73. So what's on the horizon for you this summer? For instance, what's on your race schedule?
Well, I have a race this weekend in near Des Moines, and that's for the Iowa Games and for the Senior Olympics. So I'm doing that this weekend for bike racing, and then I've got in 2 more weeks. Then I have a half Ironman, but it's an aqua bike, and that's in Chicago, Minnesota. So I'm just doing the swim and the bike, but it's a half Ironman distance. So it's 56 miles on the bike and 1.2 miles for the swim.
Great. And okay. So just for listeners, give us an idea of what right now. Now this is going to be a race week, so it might be a little different. What was, say, an average training week last week for you? How many miles did you put in, and how much swimming did you do?
The last, probably month, I've been putting in, because I have to train not only for the race this weekend, but I'm training for the longer race up in Minnesota. So I'm putting on about 100 miles on my bike a week for the last 6 weeks, probably at least. And then I do, if I'm training for triathlon, then I'm out. I do a lot more walking and a little bit of running. So I don't, so I'm not constantly running. And then on the swim, right now I'm swimming probably about 2,400 yards in the pool. I'm using a 50-meter pool, outdoor pool, which it kind of simulates the open water. And once a week I do open water with our little tri group that meets at the lake, and we have about 1,000-yard swim we do there.
Nice. Very nice. Okay, so are you wearing a wetsuit? Is the water cold?
Oh, not right now. It isn't cold, so so you wear whatever swimsuit, whatever you want, and if it's my race week, and then I'll put on light fins in order not to tax my legs too much, because I'm trying to rest, but yet I want to be in the open water. So there's various things you can do. New swimmers, they can use even a little float apparatus if they feel comfortable, or I always encourage being safe in the water. So if they have, they probably wouldn't have them, but I have a couple extra belts that people wear that are for safety, that can learn to swim in the open water. But it doesn't make them swim any easier, but what it does is, if you get into trouble, you just pull a cord and up pops a flotation. So
good plan. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we watch out for the beginner swimmers.
So good, and it's the most skill related, of all of the 3 components in a triathlon. So, as you said, most people have the most problem with that. That would be the reason why. However, I'm sure as a swim instructor, you can vouch for this. An excellent activity, even to learn after 50 or 60 or 70, because it's something you'll be able to do for the rest of your life. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, it is. I was a swim instructor for the Red Cross for many years, and I really did. I taught many children, but then as I got older, I wanted to teach some of the adults, and they can do, it might take them a little longer to get over the fear, but they can accomplish a lot by going into the water and learning how to swim.
So good. All right. So how competitive is it within your age group right now as you're going to races? So you're within the 70 to 74 group, is that correct? Okay.
Right. I usually have no competition.
No competition? Okay.
No.
So you're going to medal. It's a given. Okay.
Yeah. As long as I do it, I'm fine, But when you're in amongst all the other people, you don't think about that at all, because most of the time you don't know if you have competitors or not, until it's done. But mine, most of the cases, I don't in the smaller races. If I go to the bigger races, then I would have some competition. But the age groups are they're getting more people, because when I first did Ironman, my first Ironman, there was only 5 people in my age group, and that was a major race. So nowadays there's many more, in that age group. So the age groups are increasing.
There's too many in that age group, let me tell you, and they're too fast.
There's a lot of fast swimmers out there, and triathletes. Yeah.
Well, and I have to come back to the fact you're doing some races coming up in Des Moines. So you are from Iowa, and we realized before we got on that we have that Iowa connection, but you'll get a kick out of this. So not long ago, just within the last couple of weeks, the officials have announced that Ironman 70.3 will be in Des Moines next year. And that means basically that's their name for a half Ironman. We were up for a bid for the full Ironman and lost it, unfortunately, to Tulsa. But we got the 70.3, which is actually fun. And I am new to Scottsdale, so I'm kind of flying under the radar. Nobody knew me when I showed up on Sunday morning for a bike ride.
Oh.
I just was there being a quiet kind of fly on the wall, someone asked one of the bikers as he was putting his bike together, said, "Hey, are you signing up for Des Moines?" And he stopped and he's like, "Have you been to Des Moines?" And I said, hey. I said, "They'll take good care of you there. You should go."
That's so,
and talk a little bit about that. So, culture shock wise, you came from New York, and I can't speak to that, but having lived in Iowa for 49 years, and then spent 5.5 in Boulder, Colorado, where triathlete mecca of the world.
Yes.
And now I'm in Scottsdale with equally very active people and older adult people. The women's group I've ridden with for 3 weeks has extremely strong 60 and 70-year-old women in it. And yet Iowa, I would have to say, from my perspective while I was there, I can't say that the activity level was the same. What do you notice?
I know, well, it is not the same yet, but it is getting better. And I think it might depend on an area where you live also, because some of the outskirts, in the smaller towns, they're not going to have quite as many. But, in Des Moines has had races before. They had, I think, the High V race and things like that. They've had that. So I'm glad to see that they've gotten that 70.3. I think it's going to bring a lot of people. So far that I've noticed just for that race, they only had 40 spots left yesterday. So, they were already almost full. And in the teams, they've already had 27 team relays. So that shows that there's people that want it, that are coming from different areas. And I hope to see it grow more here. I don't know the reason that it isn't bigger than it is. But, the ones of us who are here and want to encourage, any activity really, even through like the Ys, the YMCAs, and it's important to get people involved in that. And we did have a kids race triathlon a few years ago here, and it was a big success, but it is a lot of work. So there hasn't been one since then. But I think it's important to get the adults involved and show it's important and health-wise. And it's not just racing. Just to be involved with, especially when you're past 50, it's important for you to train using weights and, keeping your body healthy as you age into your, old golden years, they might say. So,
what do you talk a little bit about that? What's the value for you personally? I mean, how would you describe how it's positively impacted or affected your life?
You mean just being involved in what I do, or just what I've chosen to do?
Being involved in triathlon or races and being active, very active, I would say, depending on who you're comparing to, a very active 73-year-old, what does that do for you?
Yeah, when I first got involved in triathlons, I didn't realize, it involved a lot. You have to do some weight training to build muscle to be able to do that. And so
Amen.
And you have and you have a nutrition part of it too. It's a big part of it. So that's another thing. You learn how to eat better. So there's all kinds of positive things that come out of, choosing what I did, because I did not have some of that before. So now, I train at least twice a week, doing weights and bands and things like that. And then nutrition, I'm always aware. I keep track of most everything I eat. So, and that just generally helps your general outlook, and you'll feel better.
So when you go in for an annual checkup, what kind of comments do you get from your doctor?
Oh, since I've had a lot of joint problems, I have to get injections in my knees every 6 months because of bone on bone, things like that. But my doctors are so encouraging. They just, tell me to keep going, to keep going. And, that even when I had a cardiac problem, I had to have a stent in my artery. And even there, they give me some guidelines, but as long as I stay within the guidelines, there's no reason why you can't participate in any activity.
And lots of reasons why you should.
And that's
great.
Correct.
So I have to ask, are you familiar with the infamous Sister Madonna Booter?
Oh, yes. I stood side by side with her at a USAT race up in Milwaukee. And we were getting ready to get into the swim because you go in groups into the swim, so depending on your age. So a lot of times just anybody over 45 is in the same age group. So
okay, I was going to say, you're not in her age group. Okay.
No, I'm not in her age group, but she's, everybody has to start, because there's not as many people after 45 or 50. Sure. So you're lumped into one group when you get in the water and start swimming. So, yes, I had an opportunity to talk with her a little bit, and she's an amazing person. And
she is amazing.
Of course, I think, everybody has, they don't have the same abilities, but, and then some are going to just they just look like natural runners, or, whatever you might classify some people as, easy. It looks easy for them, but if you work at and benefit, and you'll benefit greatly from doing training in a gym, and then you'll be ready for trying anything you want. You won't find it, that hard to do, that you can't complete something. So even if you can't run, you don't have to run. You can walk. You can learn to walk pretty fast, really. And that should be encouraging just for you to register for just a 5K and just go do it. And I think you just find the camaraderie with the other people. It's a lot of fun. It's something new to do, and I think you'd like doing it.
Fantastic. Such a great sales pitch. And by the way, to listeners, Sister Madonna Booter, if you're not familiar with her, she's an excellent story. We've talked about her in a couple past podcasts, so I won't dive too deep, but I will share the link to her book, The Grace to Race, in the show notes today. So you can, have you read that too?
I have not read that yet, but that's one of the ones I want to get, because, she's just a great model for women. And she's so humbling, She really is a great person.
An excellent person. And Shirley, thank you so much for being here. You're an inspiration. And I would love to ask you one last question. This is the hardest one of the day. And that is there a question I should have asked you? And if you don't have one, here's what I'd like. If you could say anything to someone who might be listening who's thinking it's too late, I could never do that, what would you say?
I would tell them it's never too late to do something. And even if it's something small, that you're going to even go for a walk every day for 15 minutes, and you can build on something. And I think you just find it very rewarding, and you'll find yourself doing things as you progress that you never thought you would do. And just have fun with it. Try different things, and see what happens. See if you enjoy it. And the biggest thing is you need to enjoy it. So you have to find something that works for you in order to get exercise and get yourself healthy.
Great advice. Listeners, if you'd like to submit a question that I didn't ask for Shirley, you can leave it below the show link at flipping50.com/never too late. And there's a dash between each of those words. And join us on the Flipping 50 TV Facebook page to get all the juicy resources and links that we mentioned in today's show notes, like the book. I'll link to Susan McNamee's podcast, and I may link to Des Moines 70.3 in this podcast. You can visit today's show notes episode at flipping50.com. Again, it's never-too-late. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating in iTunes. It really helps spread the word, and then share this with a friend to surround yourself with a supportive community of women on the same journey. What are you waiting for? Start Flipping 50 today.